Welcome back to our Q&A with Mr. Khalil Osiris. And if you have any questions, please type them in the comment section and we will read them and get responses from Mr. Osiris. Thank you so much for rejoining us for this live Q&A with Mr. Khalil Osiris.
All right, so we do have a question here. So Carl would like to know, is the Reflecting Freedom Network platform for formerly incarcerated and their families only?
No, in fact, we've set it up with a primary focus on resources needed by people impacted by incarceration. Additionally, the platform itself is available even for correctional staff and their family members. And I want to stop and stress that for a moment, because when we think about incarceration, it's often difficult to look at it for what it is in the context of how many people we are actually impacted by it. People of every race, people of every background are impacted by mass incarceration in this country. But specifically, when you look at people who are in prison and the guards at the prisons where they're incarcerated, what you will find is that they represent the same socioeconomic class. In other words, you're talking about two groups of people, one from an urban community generally, and the other from a rural community, generally speaking, where many of the prisons are. And they're both poor people. They're both basically part of the same socioeconomic class and in need of the same kinds of services. So the prisons represent employment for people in those communities. That employment that goes to them doesn't change the plight for their families. What I mean by that is, unless you have generational employment in prisons, like you have generational enlistment in the military, and you do, you're not going to dramatically change that environment in any ways that helps to transform it for the good, helps to lift it up. So the resources that we have are for people impacted by incarceration and others. And we are very, very, very committed to making sure that we have a holistic solution that takes into account the unique and specific needs of people who have been directly impacted by incarceration.
Okay. Thank you for your question.
All right, so we have another one here. This is from Charlie. He asks, what is the most influential way to attract our youth and formerly incarcerated people to get involved and be more protective than waiting for someone to orchestrate their own system of change or implement some of the change that we know needs to happen, either from their own history or the population that they are focusing on? How do we attract one another to be productive in the work and stress the importance of it without losing voices?
Wow. Okay, so
that's about a three-part question.
Yeah, that was a lot.
Yeah, so let me take it on in this way. The most powerful way to transform, to engage and transform another human being, any other human being, is through a personal relationship. I want to repeat that. We can talk about big change. We can talk about exponential change. We can say it in any way we choose. What I want you to understand is that the most powerful way we, as individual human beings, can engage and transform another human being's life is through a personal relationship. There is no shortcut to that. And so, when we're talking about engaging young people, youth particularly, in the kind of positive, what we call positive programming and activities that represents are broad solutions to really complicated challenges, societal challenges. What I want everyone listening to this program to understand is that their personal example of commitment is the starting point as well as the period in this work. Because you and I do not have the power to make any other human being do anything against their will. And even if we did have that kind of power, certainly I would not want to use it. And so in creating a just environment and creating a healthy environment, a nurturing and uplifting and transformative environment, it starts with our personal example. You know, there's an African proverb that people like to quote. It takes a village to raise a child. Having lived in Africa, in South Africa, and traveled throughout the continent, and having literally grown up in a community here in America with elders, I would say this: what happens when the elders are not well? What happens to the children when the elders are not well? You see, what we're faced with is an environment, a cultural narrative, a cultural norm, where we're expecting children to be well in a dysfunctional environment. We're raising them in a dysfunctional environment and expecting them to be well. Right. It doesn't work like that. In fact, many times it exacerbates whatever ills are already there. So we've got to take a very different approach to how we begin to heal as a community. Let me just share with you one thought in terms of individuals like me who have a history of incarceration, having served 20 years in prison and coming out of that environment and thinking about my responsibility to young men and women who are on the cusp, who are at great risk of traveling a path similar to my own. In the same way that I was willing to go out there and engage in criminal activity, I've got to be 1000% more committed to going out there and being an example and a role model and on the front line, helping our young people make good choices and supporting them no matter their choices. So I'm calling out to those formerly incarcerated men and women in our community who have decided to turn their lives around. I'm calling them out. I'm calling you out personally and saying to you, I'm inviting you to come and use this resource that I have created. Right. It is for you to use to be an example in your community of how to engage young people. You don't have to do it alone anymore. You don't have to say, I don't have enough. If I just had this or I just had that. That excuse is no longer relevant. It's no longer an issue. So all we have to do is resolve to be the solution. If we say we want to stop mass incarceration, let me just say this: Black people can stop mass incarceration in Black communities today, right now. Right now, we can stop mass incarceration. We can end it, literally, by doing one thing. Every single Black person in our community can decide that we will no longer accept violence towards each other and crime against each other as an acceptable behavior in our community, as an acceptable value in our community. If every one of us did that, do you realize that we would end mass incarceration instantly? We have that kind of power. While everybody else is telling us we're powerless, we are so powerful that if we decide on any given day not to play basketball, the whole damn world won't watch basketball. Not with us. So I'm saying, let's use our power intentionally. Let's begin to move beyond excuses. I'm saying this particularly to those who have offended. And let me just, Elaine, I need to say this because a lot of us who have been incarcerated, we have an additional responsibility. I feel we have an additional responsibility to our communities to be truthful, to be transparent, to be agents for positive change, because we brought harm to our communities through our families, through our loved ones. And so when I say I'm calling out to those who have been incarcerated, I'm saying that here's something you can use to make a difference. Here's something that you can master yourself and then help somebody else with. If you have low literacy, you have difficulty reading, guess what? On this website, it's audio. All you have to do is hit the audio button and it'll read it for you. If you're at want a high school diploma and you're Spanish speaking, guess what? We have a Hispanic speaking pathway for you to get your high school diploma. This is for this is for people who we're doing all this marching saying Black and brown people are being excluded. We know that. What I'm interested in is what are the solutions? What are we going to do differently? How can we ourselves do something differently that will change the dynamic, that will change the context of our existence? And so this platform, no, it's not the solution. It's a solution. And as a solution, it's available to use for free to do good for yourself and others. That's what this is about. And don't take my word for it. Go to the website, Reflecting Freedom Network, and go from there to One Network USA, to the logo, and it'll take you right to the site. Let me tell you how this goes. Elaine, I have been working with a group called Mankind Project. Mankind Project is a group of primarily white men who have decided to focus on anti-racism work within their community. And one of the leaders of this project, Mankind Project, the leader for the state of Florida, this man and I have talked about how to do this work on a more significant level so that they can take their anti-racism work and link it to the work we're doing with Reflecting Freedom Network.
Okay.
Now, imagine this. Imagine that in coming up with that, trying to figure out how we can do this work together, this man, John Warren, who's the head of, literally the head of Mankind Project Florida, his members have made a commitment to providing web-based mentorship, moral support, and employment advocacy for those who come on the website. In other words, many times when you are looking for a job, there's a thing in employment called the Good Old Boy Network. And the Good Old Boy Network is where if you're looking for a job, you know somebody that knows someone,
right,
make a referral for you. It's called the Good Old Boy Network.
right.
Now, John Warren, who's the head of Mankind Project Florida, he has been so moved by the protest and activity towards for social justice that's happening around the country that he has committed his organization and a group of white men who have no reason to care, honestly, unless they care about all of our well-being, have committed themselves to doing this work with us. That's just one example of the kind of goodwill that's out there that we can tap into when we begin to be the example that we want to see ourselves. And so I'm saying that the resource is available.
Okay.
We need people with the desire and the commitment to say they want to do the work.
Right.
And we're going to support them in every way possible.
I hope that answered your question, Charlie.
I do too.
Thank you for the question.
All right, we do have another one. This comes from Carla again. She asked, is the pathway to the high school diploma meet standards for all states and territories?
Absolutely. It's regionally accredited and nationally accredited. It's the online education program has been in business for over 20 years. We've partnered with them, the Citizens Education. We have two types of high school diploma, a general high school diploma and an academic high school diploma. The academic high school diploma is 8 more courses than the general. If one graduates with the academic high school diploma, you can apply to Yale, Harvard, MIT, any of the Ivy League schools. Yes, so it's fully accredited, fully recognized. And as I say, we are partnering with organizations in South Africa to make this resource and opportunity available for them as well to earn an accredited high school diploma recognized by the United States Department of Education.
Again, thank you for the question, Carla.
Doesn't look like we have any more questions after that.
All right, great.
It's been about half an hour.
Okay. So thank you so much, Justice Beat listening audience, for joining us for this live Facebook Q&A with Mr. Khalil Osiris. We will be back with you next Saturday, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time on the Justice Beat Facebook page, as well as the page of Real STL News. Thank you so much, and God bless.